Today, I was given a task to evaluate or to understand how we can use money to motivate everybody to take a look at what ESG can do for us other than the real impact. I'm a finance person. I was in the US for 10 years teaching, and then I came back to Hong Kong. I was at PolyU for 21 years. Now I have into my 2.5 years at Hang Seng U. I'm a very old guy. I've been teaching for like 34 years already. So throughout my finance academic profession, we understand that money is very important motivator for us to do things. So let's take a look at how we can use this red, I assume is a light thingy. The light thingy doesn't come out. And you can see that my design, which actually use a robotic arm, and we use an angel hand, which is of course is a girl hand. And we have a tree, which is half healthy, half not healthy. So therefore, my message to you is hopefully that we understand how we can change the whole tree to become green. Even though we talk about ESG, actually for today's emphasis in mainland China and in Hong Kong, we're more focusing on carbon emission, more focused on climate change. So therefore, today's topic is still focusing on E and S, even though ESG stand for G stand for governance. Really, we don't care much about it at this point. We focus on E, environmental, and S. So 4 parts in my presentation. The first one here is to understand ESG, a little bit about stuff that I do in the past. I set up a center at PolyU about 6, 7 years ago. It's an environmental center. When I moved to Hang Seng U, I started up the ESG Center. So all this work I've been doing now is accumulation of some experience and knowledge since 7 years ago. And integrating ESG will be important to understand profit and also integrating ESG for various business areas. Of course, I understand our focus today is fashion industry. I understand that. But even in fashion industry, we have the whole supply chain from top to the bottom. It involves different areas. So therefore, I will talk a little bit about different areas, how we can consider ESG integration. And finally, this is my big topic. I'm very interested in integrating technology. We call it big data or alternative data. I'll explain a little bit how we can use big data analytics and technology, machine learning, AI, to empower the integration of ESG into our business, to make wise decisions, to make smart decisions. I think this is my passion. And so there will be a little bit advertisement at the end about the forthcoming seminars that my center is organizing, funded by the Innovation Technology Commission, that they give us about $1 million to run some seminars. And we are using a lot of expensive data, using Pythons and running visualization. And this is the first time we expose our finding to the world, because they actually should be exposed in August, where we have actually launched our seminar. All right, here we begin. And if you heard about the term ESG, maybe you remember this is not something that very old. This is something actually invented by the United Nations, called UNPRI in 2006, where they wrote a report in 2005, and then they published the pledge. They said that we want to integrate 3 factors similarly correlated, which is environmental, social, and governance, into selecting stocks into our investment. So the original intention from UNPRI is actually to encourage the asset management world to evaluate how these 3 factors should be incorporated in our investment decision to buy equities, to buy bonds, to buy private equity. That was the original idea. Of course, through time, this became a very important aspect because ESG can be quantified. Unlike many years ago, we talk about business ethics. Unlike some years ago, we talk about sustainability or governance or, you know, um, um, uh, I'm not going to criticize other people. But ESG is actually quantifiable. We have numbers, carbon emission. We have a social indicator on gender equity. We have biodiversity. All these numbers we can generate to produce quantifiable KPI to evaluate how much progress we make toward business sustainability. So it becomes very important in accounting and finance area. Now I think everybody talk about it. The first concept I want to remind you, I always tell my students, if you stay with my talk for whatever time, you don't have to remember. After the talk, you will forget. It's like turn off the computer. But it's something you should remember for a long time. So the first concept I want you to remember today, if you forget everything else, is the concept of materiality. Materiality. Because if you talk about ESG, there's so many aspects. E and S and G are called the three pillars. And every pillar, we have many major issues. If in every major issue, we have other subcategory of factors, there are hundreds of things to look at. But what is the most important thing for your company, for your industry? So you have to understand the term materiality. According to our research, environmental and social, both are very important, very material for the fashion industry. So how can we look at these two aspects and focus on things that can help to make a difference to the world, which is called the real impact. And also will turn our company to be more profitable, which is financial impact. Recently, you talk about ESG, everybody say that. I heard this term to death. Everybody talk about it. They have no clue what they're talking about, but they just talk about it. I'm sick of it. So you will talk about some new jargon in ESG. There are several terms that you should say, and people say, wow, you're up to speed. The first one is called double materiality. Means that we have to look at real impact to the society, mean carbon emission, and the financial impact, which is the profit. So that double materiality is being discussed in a huge debate in the accounting world, in the financial world. The other thing is transition planning. Because now our mainland government, Hong Kong, pledged for double target, 3050. That means that we have 2030 some target, 2050 some target. But that target is on a certain day. Through time, how do we progress to that target? How can a company to transitioning slowly to the target? That is very important. So transition planning now is a big debate now. And this morning I was talking to the US. The third topic is the world is getting warmer, you can tell. I suffer with my cold, even though this is the lightest cold I have. So therefore, people told me that the very well-known energy economist from Texas, US, told me that no matter what we do in carbon emission, the temperature globally will rise no matter what happens. So are we adapting to the rising temperature with our clothing design, with our product air conditioning unit? Not just reduce carbon emission, but also to adopt to a lifestyle that will be higher temperature. I think that's a fascinating topic. So I decided in December, I'm going to organize a seminar on that. So therefore, I think the three things to learn today is materiality, double, transition planning, and how we adapt to the new lifestyle at higher temperature. Okay? So this is some finance stuff in case you have a portfolio of significant size. And even though you're not a finance person, and this is my own copyrighted diagram, how can we as finance people, we call asset management people, we progress from doing nothing, which is the left-hand side of the blue thing, classic investing. You rotate to SRI negative screening, and you rotate to ESG exclusion, you rotate up to ESG positive tilt, and eventually back to green on the left-hand side top, which is fully integrated. So this is an ESG integration life cycle, from doing nothing to doing everything. So full time, you can learn about how your company, if you have some treasury money, if your foundation, charity has some money to invest, which level of ESG integration you would choose. This is something you can consider. Okay. And of course, talk about ESG, there's some basic understanding. And when I started the center, I have my RA designed a light bulb tree. This light bulb tree talk about a very simple different major issues of the ESG pillar. So you can tell within environmental, the energy, greenhouse gas emission, water and waste hazardous materials. So all these are different major issues within each pillar for the ESG integration. So your company can pick what is material to your firm and choose that aspect to start your ESG effort. And all this is in my website. You can look at the HSU website, and I have this tree there. And I have spent enough time with my colleague and my RA to keep pushing HSU space ESG. So you just go to your Google and search HSU space ESG. This one come up top. So we have done enough clicking to make it number one. It take a lot of time, like whole 6 months doing nothing but click it. And now we go to money. How can we earn more money by doing ESG integration? Now, I'm a finance person, so therefore, I'm going to show you stock price and return. Of course, you can increase the profit, net profit margin, reducing costs, but eventually, to people like me, we look at valuation, stock price. So there are two examples here, and this is one example that in 2019, we were stuck at the COVID, and that we got nothing else to do. We bought all this expensive data from ESG. So we run some graph, and this paper we published in a journal. This is not our top journal, but this paper is the most cited paper that I have ever published. I published quite a lot of paper. I published over 100 paper in SSCI. And this paper is interesting. It shows that if you look at the ESG, higher performance ESG stock in the Chinese market, full time from 2015 to 2019, actually you make more money. The difference is 5% or 9% depends on time period. 12% or 9% depends on time period you choose. So the conclusion is, if you actually care about ESG, the stock portfolio buying ESG, higher performance portfolio is actually making you more money. That's even as far as simple CSI 300 thing, not even fancy. And the paper actually talk about during COVID-19, when the Wuhan lockdown is removed, when the stock market opened up after Chinese New Year in mainland China, the ESG stock with higher performance actually lose less money for you. That's very interesting to us. Of course, don't ask me, do you buy the stock? Okay, that was the history we're studying in 2019. But anyway, this is some implication there for people that actually believe in it. And now this is not from me, this is from BlackRock. BlackRock did a very interesting paper back in 2000, I think many years ago, 15. What do? BlackRock is the world's largest asset management firm, okay, the largest. And they have all the money. Back in 2015, what they have done is look at happiness of employee. Back then, they look at just happiness index. But of course, now we book it under the social pillar of ESG. What they found is they monitor the intranet in the US company where employee can badmouth their boss. And when they look at a lot of badmouth, a lot of negative emotion, that will be unhappy employee. And the firm is unhappy firm. And then they look at the happy firm versus unhappy firm, and the differential return throughout the time is quite high. You can look at, you hold the portfolio from 2009 to 2015, you actually earn return, much higher return, like 8% return, cumulatively. So happy employee bring money back to the investors. That is what BlackRock found. Of course, the same thing may not work anymore because when BlackRock published the model, that means now it's used to make money. If they still keep using money, they won't tell us. So when they announce it to the public, they have something else to measure. I'm sure happiness is still there. Gosh, I have 5 minutes left. I thought I just started 2 minutes ago. So I'm going to skip through a lot of things. Okay. I'm sure that time passes fast. It's not because that you cut my time. So therefore, I'm just skip through all this stuff. I'm going to go to the last section. Here. The last section here talk about what I was mentioning, that how we can visualize using big data to look at ESG performance of company. And I believe that artificial intelligence and machine learning will be important for us to use. If you look at these bubbles, they represent 500 firms up there with a solid ball, and some hollow circle, about 311 firms down there, all listed in Hong Kong. The 511 firms actually represented by different industry, which we color-coded. And the point here is not to identify what industry, is to tell you, if I run some ESG performance in the Z-axis, I-score, I created that. If you want to know what's I-score, you can look at a website called myesgi.com. This is my own website that we have a team of people creating this I-score. It's being used by Hong Kong now. So this I-score is the vertical axis, and the x-axis are the sentiment. What is the sentiment? That means that we pay a lot of money to some company, and they will generate each article that we talk about. For example, you will look at a big company in mainland China about fashion, Anta or Leiling. We can actually key a button to find out that Anta, for the past 10 months, what happened to the sentiment of the articles talk about Anta's so-so, or Anta's E, or Anta's G. And we can calculate a net sentiment, whether the sentiment from the newspaper article or social media included is positive about Anta on E or negative about it. So we now, using this sentiment indicator, using as the XY axis, we plot this thing. I know I have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to conclude. The conclusion here is, you can see, no matter is have I-score performance, high ESG performance, or low ESG performance, the sentiment is quite similar. Be careful. Sentiment is not performance. Sentiment is the feeling of the reader reading those articles, think your company is doing a good job. And you understand, you pay a few $1,000s or KOL in mainland China, they can say terrible things as good things. So therefore, sentiment can be manipulated through social media, through internet. So therefore, you have to be very careful. People say good things and bad things about you, about ESG and everything else. So the conclusion here is they all cluster in some particular region. So therefore, it doesn't matter high performance, low performance, the sentiment about the same. I'm going to skip to this one. This is an example of two companies. They both have a high I-score, high ESG performance, but the sentiment on the orange one is really good, on the green one is really bad. What does it mean? It means that both have solid ESG performance, but sentiment can be very opposite. So therefore, there's no direct correlation between performance and sentiment. So what does it mean? It means that when your company start looking at the fashion industry, you care about what people say about you in the social media. And that sentiment in the social media may not actually reflect the actual effort you've done in E and S. So now, what's the solution? Of course, the solution is not here tonight because I'm going to save it for something else you pay for. So conclusion here is, look at market value, same thing. So high market, low market, similar sentiment. So I'm going to stop here within my time frame. And thank you so much for having me here. And I'll see you again, I think, in the panel. All right, appreciate it. Thank you.